guys, Howard here. Today I'm talking about the importance of knowing chord inversions and substitutions on guitar. So many of my students that have come to me over the years, I'm always surprised, even now still, that they kind of know maybe a couple of different ways to play a chord, a couple of ways to play a C chord, a D chord, whatever, maybe three in some cases, but they don't really know a lot of inversions and how to use them. And that's really what this tutorial is all about. So let me give you an example, okay? We'll start off with the blues because everybody loves the blues, right? And it's the root of so much stuff. But I'll do this lesson in two parts. In this first part, I'll talk about the blues and how the inversions apply to that, and then blues rock, and even pop. But then in the second part, I'll get more into the jazz voicings and all of that stuff. Now, don't shy away from the jazz stuff because, you know, Jimmy Page used a lot of jazz chords, John Mayer, guys like Satriani, Steve Vai. So those jazz chords have kind of permeated music all across the board, even in contemporary country music, okay? So let's get started. For instance, this is an A7. 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 This is an A9 related to A7 and A7 up here, okay? So there's several different fingerings, not necessarily inversions, although they are in depending on what chords we're talking about. But this is just several different ways to think of playing A7 and A9 chords, okay? And then in a blues, if we were in the key of A, we would then move to D, of course. And so we can think of different ways to do that. A D7, D7, D9, D7. You get the idea. E7, back to D7. Different ways to play those same chords. So let me give you a little brief musical example of using exactly what I was just talking about and applying it to a basic 12-bar blues. So as you can see, it can really spice things up, right? It adds a lot of color to your playing. And you don't have to do all that, of course. I was just trying to throw the chords around so you can see them. But it's really cool to think outside the box, you know, instead of just playing the same chord shape for 4 bars or 2 bars, whatever it is you have, you can think about those different ways to play the same chord. An E7, an E7, E7, D7, D9, you get the idea, and then you can just play around with the chords with your fingers. And so that's sort of the second part of this. It's utilizing inversions and chord substitutions along with the scale patterns and even arpeggios that outline the chords, okay? So for instance, with that A blues, you can see I'm just playing around with the scale. Inside the chord. Go to the D chord. Inversion. Back to A7, maybe down here. Once again. Just adding scale tones to it. Go up to E7. Maybe E7 sharp 9 instead. So I'm just taking those different chord shapes. You could play the D7 up here and repeat the lick, moving your fingers around the chord, whatever you want to do. But it's really important, once again, I keep stressing, to know different ways to play these chords. Okay, so let's talk about chord inversions and substitutions outside of the blues, because things can get even more interesting, okay? So let's say we have a really simple chord progression like E to D to A. Okay, pretty simple. So on and so forth, okay? Now, the first thing we want to do is the basic idea, of course, of just moving fingers around the chords to get a little more color. So that's some pretty basic stuff, right? Just move your fingers around a chord, right? Search for scale tones that complement the chord. You can see I'm just doing the G string, 2nd fret, B string, D string, everybody knows this trick. But you can also do that on the G string by going from the 4th fret back to the 2nd. So there's several ways with certain chords that you can color things up. A, making it an A sus4, back to A and an A sus2. So those would be your most, what I call, fundamental ways of decorating a basic chord progression like this. But there's a lot more that you can do. For instance, think about substitution chords. Instead of just playing your basic E, D, and A, you could play an E add 9, for instance. I don't know if you can see that. 2nd fret on the A string, 1st fret on the G string, 4th fret on the D string. Really sweet sounding, and that really opens the sound of the E chord up. And then instead of a basic D, you might try a D6-9. Really lovely sounding chord, 5th fret on the A string, 4th on the D, and 2nd on the G. And then we could do a add 9. So that's like a regular A bar chord, but don't bar with the 1st finger. So the B string and the E strings are open, okay? And that really opens the sound up. The idea, and you can see what I did there was I started to combine those substitute chords with the regular chords, the standard chords. So let's talk about some inversions for that basic chord progression, all right? You have the other forms of these chords that you can use, of course, your basic E bar chord, your D bar chord, and then your A, right? You can use those as well, but you can invert some of those chords Hendrix style, for instance, okay? So here's your regular E bar chord, of course, 7th fret on the A string, and then bar D, G, and B at the 9th fret. Now, we're going to flip that chord on its head, so to speak, okay? We're going to take this finger, slide it up to the 11th fret, and replace that bar with the 1st finger. And in fact, bar all the way across to the A string, so you're barring the A, the D, the G, and the B string, all right? But this finger is up here. So this creates an inversion of the E chord with the 3rd on the top. And for this one, you can put that open E string in there if you want as well. But that's really cool because with your finger barred down, you can get the whole Hendrix thing going. Just moving across the strings in the scale pattern. So that's like a pentatonic shape. happening inside the chord. Hit as many strings as you want. You know, you can hit 2 or 3 at a time. Could move down here, and now we'd have the D chord. And you are in the Hendrix zone. So all of that stuff can really spice a really basic chord progression up. So what I'm going to do is play it again, just sort of ad-libbing those different things into it, okay? And there's all kinds of chord substitutions you can make. I mean, you can really go crazy with this stuff. For instance, instead of just the D, you could use a D sus2, which will sound great as well. It's just really fun to do, right? You can get online and download tons of chords, or just get a really killer chord book, you know, and find it out, because there's a lot of fun stuff you can do. And a real important pointer that I would say is, if you want to find a new chord, move a finger. You know what I mean? Just move a finger. If you're playing a basic C chord, what happens if you put your pinky on the D string? Ooh, pretty nice. And you can do that on just about any chord. If you're playing a G chord, move a finger. And you will start to find new chords. If you're playing an A bar chord, move a finger. If you're playing a regular bar chord, move your finger around the chord, see what happens. Never a bigger tip than I could ever give any of my students on discovering chords, right? Just move a finger and see what happens. Sometimes you come across these great sounds. And sometimes move a chord itself. If you've got a chord shape, you might be surprised. Some really cool things can start to happen, okay? And then the other thing to mention is you're looking for those scale tones. Now, I'll get more into that in part 2 when I start talking about the jazz chords that guys like Page and others use, okay? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and be sure to check out part 2, okay? See you guys.